So here's another one that falls under the category of you have got to be kidding me. More and more every day there's something else being reported that just convinces me that our governments just absolutely not only are completely tone deaf, but just do not give a damn about us. So, Canadian news over the last little while has been completely distracted by the Air Canada strike. And a couple of days ago, I was scrolling through the news, and buried deep within the news was an article in Global News talking about how the Canadian government spent $170,000 repatriating or bringing back to Canada ISIS women from camps in Syria. Now, these women had voluntarily moved to Syria to marry ISIS fighters, and in many cases were actually involved in training other women. And obviously, when ISIS, when the Kurds took back large areas of Syria and Iraq, a lot of these women were captured and housed in detention camps. So, following a challenge in the courts by their families, these women were then returned to Canada. And we can argue about whether or not they should have been brought back or just left in the Syrian detention camps. They had made the decision to go and join the fight, the ISIS fight. Should they have been left in those camps? But the Canadian government decided to repatriate them and bring them back to Canada. Now, this only came to light after a 2-year delay following a Access to Information Act request. It took the federal government 2 years to respond, and only just very recently did they release this information. So the Canadian government brought back these women and housed them in hotels. And really, you can't make this up. So the money was for costs incurred when the 8 women who had traveled to the Middle East to join the Islamic State returned to Canada with their children in 2022 and 2023. Newly released documents show that Global Affairs Canada paid for business class flights, so they traveled back in style, stayed at the Montreal Airport Marriott Hotel, and the charges were for room service, obviously the hotel room service, crisps or chips, chocolate bars, and Timbits. Anybody who doesn't know Canada, Tim Hortons is a popular. Actually, there are Tim Hortons in the UK and the US. The little donut balls and chocolate bars. One hotel room cost over $1,000 for 2 nights because of a wine tab. Another ran to $850 with charges for junk food and servings of red, white, and sparkling wines. Now, remember, these are ISIS brides. I didn't think they were allowed to drink wine. The costs also included $2,800 for catering, sandwiches at the hotel's Bijou restaurant bar, and $86 worth of snack food and over-the-counter drugs at a hotel gift shop. The expense reports chronicle room service meals of more than $100, books, clothing, travel bags, Canadian pins, and a high-value token of appreciation purchased at Best Buy. So, here's a government credit card. Go get yourself a new iPhone. So the expenses are for both the women and children, as well as the government staff sent to receive them when they landed in Montreal before carrying on to their home provinces. So the women were living in British Columbia, Alberta, Ontario, and Quebec when they left to live under ISIS. So 2 years to release this information, and we find out that the Canadian government is not only bringing these people back, but they're doing so in complete luxury, business class flights, nice hotel rooms, fully expensed wine, meals, snacks, junk food. You know, what gets me with this, really, what I think really gets me with this. Here we go. A BC resident, one of them, Kimberly Pullman, and Umima Chawe, came back at a cost of $10,000, included in the cost of almost $2,800 for 100 emergency blankets and 5 first aid kits, that was shipped to Syria for the operation. A BC resident, Pullman was allegedly part of an ISIS battalion that trained women to fight. She has been charged with terrorism offenses. Now, so they bring her back at such cost, wined and dined, and to be tried in a Canadian court, I'm guessing. You know what? They were already in detention in Syria, and again, some could argue that maybe that was the best place for them to stay. But what really gets me is that that's a lot of money. And we are living in times, I mentioned this before, when there's increased use of food banks, bankruptcies, people losing their homes, the cost of living crisis. We're paying 42% of our, on average, 42% of our income on taxes. And this is just the income tax and the big tax. It's not including, all the other levels of taxes we have to keep paying. But there are currently estimated between 2,500 and 10,000 homeless veterans in Canada living on the streets, going hungry. And the reasons for their homelessness, it generally is illness, injuries, or other medical conditions. And less likely because of things such as addiction. So $170,000 spent on bringing back ISIS fighters, and meanwhile we have an increasing number of homeless veterans who are left struggling and alone on the streets, where resources, Veterans Affairs resources are declining, leaving private groups to pick up the slack. I mean, a lot of these guys cannot get the help they need. Although the government is quick to offer them in many cases, or there have been a lot of reported cases of them being offered medical assistance in dying. But what do you expect? I mean, this is under the government whose leader, Trudeau, said that veterans are often asking for more than we can give. But there seems to be no limit for how much we can give to bringing back ISIS fighters to Canada, and other, Carney's announced how many billions in dollars in aid for that biggest money laundering scheme in history, the Ukraine. But there's no money for veterans. It's declining. There's no money to help Canadians who are going hungry. But there's plenty of money to keep funneling money to Ukraine. This, one of the biggest wealth transfers we've seen, and to seemingly to bring back fighters who Canadian troops were actually involved in training the Iraqi forces against. So, Canadian troops are over in Syria training Iraqi forces, or in Iraq training Iraqi forces to deal with ISIS, and meanwhile we're spending all this money bringing them back. It's as my father would say, it's a complete piss take. You cannot make this up, and it just goes to show that they don't care what we think. They'll just go ahead and do whatever it is they want to do. Kind of jumping across the Atlantic, Starmer announcing that the UK is now going to be sending troops to Ukraine, following if there's a cessation in hostilities, British troops and French troops will be in the Ukraine. I doubt highly that a lot of the British people will support this. And really, what the question I have: why does Starmer think he can do anything to protect Ukrainian territorial sovereignty when he can't even defend the British coast against a few dinghies coming over from France every day? It just blows me away. Every day, there's more and more of this effery. I'm trying to be polite, and not drop any swear words. Every day, you see more and more of this. What do you think? I mean, should Canada have brought these women back, or should they have left them in the camps in Syria? I'd like to hear what you think. And why are we living under these not fit for purpose governments who are just don't care? They're just blowing money on doing things that I think a lot of us don't want them doing. I'm sure that if it went to a poll, if it went to a referendum, the majority of people would have said, leave them in Syria. And if we are bringing them back, they should not be wined and dined in the Marriott Hotel in Montreal at a cost of thousands of dollars a night. But yeah, there you have it. So buried deep in the news, and I haven't seen anybody else talking about this. I haven't seen any other media outlets picking up on this. Buried deep in the news was the Canadian government, Global Affairs Canada, spending tens of thousands of dollars in bringing women back, ISIS fighters ostensibly, back from Syria, and wining and dining them. I guess the only good piece of news on the political front is that Pierre Poilievre won his by-election in Alberta, so he'll be returning to the Houses of Parliament. And let's see where that goes. Unfortunately, Carney does have a majority government, so toppling it with a non-confidence vote will be a little tricky. But we'll see. I think at least now there'll be a loud voice holding him accountable, but we'll see. Anyway, guys, thanks for watching. If you haven't already, again, I would really appreciate you subscribing to the channel. And if you like this video, giving it a thumbs up. And if you have any comments, any thoughts on this, drop me a comment below. I love reading your comments. And thanks for all of the comments on the last video. Some interesting discussions. And you can see where people's feelings are lying. You really can. I wonder how often people from the government do a little bit of social listening and read YouTube video comments. But all right, guys, thanks for watching, and catch you on the next video.